Dressforms, such a useful, integral, and intuitive tool, yet never really talked about. While the history of fashion has been studied heavily, these instrumental tools have been hidden away in the limelight. Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm with Bespoke Forms and we create custom dress forms. And in this video, we look to uncover the history behind these dress forms and discuss the significance of their effect on culture and craftsmanship. Before we dive in, let's talk about disclaimers. I've done my best to research and present accurate information in this video. However, they may be errors or misinterpretations, as some texts may have been misunderstood or misrepresented unintentionally. The content is based on a limited number of sources, which may affect its credibility due to the scarcity of available literature on the topic. This video is not intended to be a comprehensive guide, but rather a personal effort to share what I have learned and make information on dress forms more accessible, given how difficult it was for me to find clear and detailed resources. This video uses public domain content for educational purposes only. Sources are listed in the description. And with that, let's start with the origins of the dress form. To get to the dress form, we must start at the mannequin. Not the plastic bodies used for display, but the tiny little Parisian dolls that were called mannequins. These articulated dolls over time became more realistic and larger in size. They were heavily used by artists in their studios for references and for inspiration in a myriad of ways. Yes, used for posing, but oftentimes also being used for more unsightly endeavors. Tailors and then dressmakers, who also required docile bodies, quickly adopted these early mannequins. Early dress forms were handmade and were custom made to their clients. The male dress forms were made of steam-treated wool fabric and linen fabric with glue or starch, whereas the female dress forms were often more simplistic, often woven out of wicker or wire by basket weavers or tinsmiths. Because of all the secrecy and taboo surrounding this tool, it is actually difficult to place an exact date of creation, but it is speculated to be in the 1820s. You can imagine independent tailors and dressmakers being skilled craftsmen that would, 1, create the tools out of necessity to assist in their craft, or 2, outsource another craftsman to create the tools for them. I personally felt a real kinship to these folk as a fellow crafty person who, under the same circumstances, would likely have done the same. Previously, they would also use live models, also called mannequins, but were cumbersome for constant use. These dress forms later became display mannequins in stores and were used to sell garments rather than make garments. At this point, it's time for an important clarification. If you have ever been confused about the difference between a mannequin and a dress form, it's because the French word mannequin has 3 meanings. First is a live model used for fittings. The second, the dressmaker's or tailor's dress form. Or third, the display mannequin. All 3 were employed during a similar time period and were used interchangeably and were associated with negative stereotypes, as we will discuss later. Now, let's get into our first major player, Alexis Lavigne. Influenced by the metric revolution after the French Revolution, this greatly influenced Alexis Lavigne to create the tape measure and come up with more mathematical approaches to patterning. He had a number of international clientele, and as you can imagine, the difficulty of fitting clients from far away. This shift of mathematical clothes making led him to delve down the path of creating the tape measure. Before this, they would use fragile ribbon with markings or cuttings to measure and create clothes for their clientele. Alexis Lavigne's North Star seems to create a process that required as few fittings as possible. With the rise of horseback riding coming into fashion, noble ladies were looking for garments that emphasized fit rather than aesthetics. To match this interest, Alexis advertised himself as tailleur pour dames,
Tailleur pour dames,
or as a tailor for women. He molded a form for Empress Eugenie, wife of Napoleon III, in 1857, whose curves were supposedly ideal. He continued to create dress forms for wealthy clientele until he eventually realized there was opportunity in the mass market. Ever the busybody, he also had submitted a patent for the production of plaster molded mannequins officially in 1854, though he had shown a prototype back in 1849. His initial dress forms were custom molded mannequins that would mimic a variety of different physiques. It does look eerily similar to the dress forms of today, no? Although initially meant for the upper class, dress forms found much greater success after the standardization of dress forms. Unfortunately, his Paris factory was destroyed in the 1870 war, and enters our second major player, Frederick Stockman. An employee and disciple of Lavigne, he industrialized the process of making dress forms using paper and plaster casts of body models. He found a huge amount of success in this scene. Since the beginning, the Stockman's dresser's form has been handcrafted from papier-mâché. This recycled paper is applied on a mold. After cutting off the mold, the bust is stapled back together and sanded. Then the bust is padded and covered in fabric. At the end, the bust is imprinted with the Stockman logo and the size and shape references. By the 1880s, these body doubles had become indispensable tools of the trade and took up residence in the homes and studios of dressmakers. Stockman later teamed up with M. Siegel and today are Siegel and Stockman. They found immense success from 1900 to 1930s and aligned themselves with major name brands in the 1940s. They were giants in the dress form industry and were in almost every Parisian store when Paris was in the height of fashion. They claimed to have sold 30,000 dress forms each year. As the dress forms were being used in households, in parallel, mannequins became a tool for selling in storefronts. We will be moving on to further iterations and patents for dress forms. In 1880, John Hall patented an adjustable dress form for different skirt sizes, aka changing the circumferences. Theodore Parker Colby in 1903 added arms to the dress form. The Hall Bourget Dress Form Company, which was based in the US, had a total of 7 patents to do with the dress forms. The most notable is the one submitted by Jack Carl Jenkins for the adjustable dress form in 1921. Another 2 was submitted by Frank B. Granger, which made improvements to the adjustable dress form. In addition, in the 1900s, pamphlets for how to create custom dress forms out of paper tape existed and led to more modern iterations of the dress form. For example, the duct tape dress form. Now let's jump into the attitudes and societal commentary on dress forms. In the early days of the mannequin and dress form, they were seen as less than. The word mannequin was used in an extremely derogatory sense and demonized the tools utilized by craftspeople. For much of its early existence, they were an easy target for male critics. Here are some direct quotes. "That hideous machine with a human form. On your arm, you have a woman who seems superior to all others, and suddenly you encounter another woman who resembles yours like a sister. They are, in fact, daughters of the same mannequin. That elegance you thought unique is churned out in 100,000 copies to the ends of the earth." He was claiming the shape of the mannequin made it very, very difficult to distinguish a noble lady from someone who was of lower stature. And how dare they do that? As Alison David aptly states, while male critics of capitalism saw in the mannequin a soulless manifestation of a commodity fetish, As a functional tool, it helped tailors and dressmakers produce and sell the fashionable facades that were a necessary, if contested, part of living in modern cities. While the strong rhetoric of its moral failings and social commentaries, the dress form's usefulness prevailed all criticisms and survived as an ever-useful tool. And we can talk about the effects of that tool in fashion. The effects of dress forms on the fashion industry cannot be overstated, but we will touch on two very important changes: the standardization of clothing and cutting fabric on the bias. Standardization of dress forms led to the standardization of clothing. It was the first time numbers were used to describe pieces of clothing. This shift also changed the method in which people could acquire clothes. Instead of going to a family tailor or dressmaker and over the course of months have a garment be made and fit to you, people could now pop into a shop and walk out with clothes. It fundamentally changed the experience by limiting the interactions between the dressmaker and the wearer. Back in the day, all fabric was cut along the two grains of the fabric, the warp and the weft. Fabric was expensive and cutting on the diagonal wasted a lot of fabric. Back then, fabric was created manually, which really explains why they optimized for minimizing fabric scraps. However, with the use of the dress form, Madeleine Viennette introduced bias-cut silk dresses in 1927. It allowed the fabric to hug and cling to the body in a way fashion hadn't explored before. In addition, people didn't have a way to see the drape of the fabric before, and this changed the way they viewed cutting out fabric and created the new method, draping. Over time, the dress form has allowed for a multitude of new shapes and silhouettes to be made. The benefit of being able to visualize and directly manipulate the fabric is what makes the dress form the backbone to adventurous fashion. The history of dress forms is fascinating, as its usage has been purposefully very hidden. I do implore you to read the articles that go more in depth and have details we did not include for clarity's sake. Also, the overall timelines are very confusing within sources and across sources, so reading them will give you a more complete picture of what happened. Personally, I find it endlessly fascinating the amount of information I was able to cover in this deep dive. Click that subscribe button if you would like to see more videos like this, and check out Bespoke Forms. We create custom dress forms at an affordable price point that look exactly like you. Bye bye. There is a widely accepted fun fact that the first dress form dates back to King Tut, but I personally believe it's such an exaggeration. There is a wooden mannequin that is painted, and it seems to have marks that indicate that jewelry was displayed on it. However, I believe it makes it the first mannequin, and calling it the first dress form is such a stretch. There is legitimately no evidence that it was used as a dress form. Just my personal gripe. Do with that what you will.